Oliver Glasner's Crystal Palace are the first ever top flight side to win 6 games in a row without conceding a single goal. So far in 2025 they've scored 25 goals, conceded 7 and have won 10 out of 13 games away from home. All of that, and now they're off to Wembley to play Aston Villa. So in this video I want to look how Oliver Glasner has outdone Fulham again. We'll dive right into how the two teams set up, the tactical analysis, how Palace is so good at what they do, and whether or not they can actually win the FA Cup. Let's go. Palace, as we know, are in serious form. I mean, a 3-0 win away from home is great against anyone, but to come against Fulham, who had home advantage with Wembley on the line, is unbelievable. So how did they do it? This is how Palace set up. Mateta back in for Nketiah noticeably, and this is how Fulham set up. Two good teams, 6 points divides them both in the league, with Fulham higher of the two. It was always going to be an interesting encounter, as Palace completely outclassed them a few weeks ago at Fulham, so for Marco Silva you'd expect him to have more to think about. Now the first 30 minutes were quite dull. Wharton probably should have been sent off. Lerma had a shot struck off the crossbar. Fulham were probably the better team. They had a few chances, with a good one from Nunes going wide, but this is exactly how Palace start every game. They grow into it all the time. It's as if they look to sustain the early pressure that comes their way and don't share too much attacking joy, and then completely flip that round as the half progresses. They've got the defensive and physical solidity to do this, and total trust in Glasner's approach to every matchup, which is why they don't need much possession. Palace off the ball aren't massively high pressing. Mostly they'll choose when and when not to trigger the press, but it's a 5-2-3 off the ball. Eze, Mateta and Sarr lead that line of press, and then once they transition into their own half pretty deep, it becomes a 5-4-1 shape. Eze and Sarr leaving Mateta to join Wharton and Lerma. But I noticed with Palace's fast and tricky transitional outlets, it meant that Mateta dropped further in deep. You can do this when you're this good at going from defence to attack, but a nice benefit you get from this is that further overload in the central space, and any cross that comes in, Mateta can just head straight away. On the ball for Palace, when they actually have it, there's the back three, there's the wing backs pushing up, and there's two forwards behind the striker dropping in deep. Fulham set up in their usual 4-4-2 off the ball shape. Now most teams use this shape off the ball mainly because it limits any space centrally and allows you to double up out wide. But the problem is, for some teams, they don't have much proactivity when the ball actually goes out wide. They get used to sitting in. Everton and Forest do this well, but teams like Leicester don't, and I felt Fulham didn't at some points today. Now let's see why. When the 33rd minute had hit, Palace had found the back of the net. One of their first chances of the game. A wonderful goal from Eze. Truly what he's all about in those spaces when he's on form. However, let's rewind. Lacroix plays a simple ball over to Tyrick Mitchell, and bam, it's already a 2v1. Now why does this happen? Well, it's because the Fulham wingers don't track onto the Palace wingbacks. You can see that here with Willian, and then you can see it here for the goal. Iwobi and his teammates arrive late, and of course Eze has to beat his man before he strikes, but it's a fine example of what Palace were able to do to Fulham. Eze at times moved a fair bit wider so that he and Mitchell were isolated 2v1 versus Timothy Castagne. Eze found plenty of space in this game, mainly because Palace moved the ball so fast, and with Lucic pushing up next to Iwobi a lot, it meant that Berg had a lot to do versus Sarr and Eze. This was clear throughout the game that Glasner targeted the width of the pitch. In building up a lot, Palace commonly this season emphasised pushing that wing back up. This meant tactical little details and players moving, like the midfielder pushing out wide, allowing for the wing back to push up, and Wharton in the lone 6. This could also be the goalkeeper joining deep build-up, which pushes Lacroix out to the right, Richards further out, so Nunes pushes up. All a part of a simple knock-on effect. These might be very minor tactical details, but players moving around on the pitch and having these different tactical roles can make life very difficult for opponents. In the 37th minute though, clinical Crystal Palace struck again. Here, the Fulham right back Timothy Castagne has no passing option inside due to Palace's man-to-man off-the-ball proactivity. He can't find Lucic, who pushes up from the pivots due to Lerma and Gurhi. So he loses it. Lerma finds Eze in space, who does terrific, before putting in a great cross for Sarr to put away. It's simply an unreal goal, an unreal counter-attacking goal. It's clinical, it's effective, and you can see here how good they actually are on attacking transition. With the numbers they have forward. Mitchell and Eze attacking, with Matata, Sarr and Muniz to aim for. It is brilliant. For the rest of the half, Fulham continue to struggle and really find joy after their early spell. Fulham lacked any real burst or pace or individual quality to hurt Palace, so this resulted in putting hopeless crosses in against the best team in the league in dealing with crosses, and long balls to Muniz. But overall, the game was very evenly matched. Just one side was better defensively, knew their game plan, and were much more clinical. Then the second half began and Fulham had more success in this half. I mean, they're 2-0 down at home with an FA Cup semi-final on the line. With so much possession, you need something to show for it. However, they didn't. They did dominate the ball even more in the second half with 77% possession, but just didn't do much with it. Often, they looked for that inside pass a lot, but with how congested the space was, they struggled. If they couldn't find much success out wide or in the centre, they're not going to keep passing the ball short for the next 45 minutes. The fans will be furious. So they tried to really force their way in with more risky and direct balls into the forward line, which worked at times, but when it didn't, it meant Sarr and Eze could hurt them and burst away on the break. The crosses were headed away pretty much every time, with Mateta continuing to drop deep at times, which was amusing. You don't actually see a striker dropping in deep that often. For Palace, Lacroix kept cutting out everything, and they continued to be deadly in transition. Sarr and Eze are two brilliant skillful ball carriers, so naturally Fulham need to try and minimise that and be aggressive, which leads to fouls, slowing the game down, killing momentum and frustrating Fulham players, which was brilliant. That frustration, however, would have been further affected when Palace netted a third goal, and this was Glasner's system doing what it does best. Fulham try and play out coolly, yet in comes Palace's aggressive centre-backs who time their actions and jump so well. Gurhi takes back what's his. Kamada finds an easy pass into Nketiah, and it's as easy as that. It's vintage. Then for the rest of the match, despite the rise in shots and XG for Fulham, Palace sustained and soaked up the pressure just fine, unfazed, comfortable and eager to seal their 13th clean sheet in all competitions. This Crystal Palace team is a fine example of a manager who's very good and maximises the very best out of the group of players that he's got. But that doesn't purely explain how clinical and efficient they are. But it's simple when you put the profiles together. The squad building has been very good. Defensively, when dealing with crosses, runners, balls in behind and everything else, you have fast, agile, physically strong commanding centre-backs who share an ease to what they do with the ball too. When they defend well and get the ball back, they have a big strong number 9 to feed off, and also two forwards behind them that are fast, tricky and skillful ball carriers that are also supported by two very athletic wing-backs. But actually getting the ball to the forwards, you have one of the finest young midfielders in world football, Adam Wharton. He needs just 2 to 3 touches and then bam, a quick pass right into the forward line. That's the formula. The 21-year-old does 1 or 2 scans before receiving the ball and then makes the pass. He processes the image so quickly and he's press resistant and supported by solid midfielders all round. That's it. That's all. I'd say Lacroix, Mateta and Wharton are the most effective players to get the very best out of others around them, but the team is fantastic and one that tactically is so enjoyable to watch. So enjoyable that I think that semi-final versus Aston Villa at Wembley is going to be such an interesting game. On one hand, you've got such a well-drilled, transitional and defensively solid team, managed by a manager with a European trophy in his bag, coming up against a team who are also in form with a manager that has 4 European trophies and titles in France with PSG. I think on their day, with some stroke of luck like any team needs at Wembley, and with a player or two stepping up on the big stage, Palace can be victorious, not just in the semis, but in the final too. It would be huge, and it's something that I can genuinely see happening with how deadly Crystal Palace are towards the end of the season. If you enjoyed today's video, then make sure to smash a like and subscribe to the channel. Do you think Crystal Palace can win the FA Cup, or will it be Forest, Villa or Manchester City? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.